The highest form of government is what people hardly even realize is there. Next is that of the sage, who is seen and loved and respected. Next down is the dictatorship that thrives on oppression and terror. And the last is that of those who lie and end up despised and rejected. The sage says little and does not tie the people down, and the people stay happy, believing that what happens, happens naturally. There's another translation of this verse. I believe it's this verse. I'm going off of memory. That the final line is the people stay happy, believing that what happens was their own doing. And so we can talk about that as we sort of get there. But this verse is basically a ladder or a hierarchy of the best way in which to be with people. You don't just have to think of it as leading people, but you can think of it as being with people. And then the next rung down and the next rung down. And, you get basically from some very high level benevolent realities all the way down to the most destructive. And to me, this verse is just sort of a guide stone to, as you are going to have to inevitably have relationships and interact with people, or maybe you are in a position where you are going to have to lead people or manage people or something like that. Here's some things to keep in mind of the ways in which this goes best and the ways in which this goes worst and sort of the different levels in between. And maybe you can kind of even figure out in your current leadership role or in certain relationships that you have where on this structured hierarchy you're falling and ways in which you might be able to improve those things. So the highest form of government, and again, just translate that to mean leadership or relation with others. The highest form of government is what people hardly even realize is there. This is the essence, I think, of what is being said in the very last line of this, of it's natural, right? Everything is just happening naturally. It is essentially the essence of flow. It's that nothing is being overly intentionally pushed against or pushed in a direction. There's a natural occurrence there that just feels very fluid and that there's nothing to really work for. And I'm sure you've had these types of interactions or relationships where you just hit it off, as we would say in modern language. And you just immediately feel connected to somebody and it's all just easy. That is the highest form of relationship. The next is that of the sage who is seen and loved and respected. So here is a little bit more of a sort of striated relationship where someone is very clearly, we could say, sort of put up on a pedestal a bit, and they are seen and loved for the way that they are and the things that they do and that sort of thing. But maybe it's a little bit of a step away from feeling completely natural and free flowing. There's a little bit of a of a we put somebody up. Yeah, I don't know a better way to put it than we put somebody up on a pedestal a bit. The next level down is the dictatorship. So we have quite a strong fall here from you're seen, loved, and respected to now you're a dictator. And I think the interesting framing there is that once you sort of start to fall down the ladder from just that very natural state, very free flowy state that's at the top, it can be a very quick decline, right? There's just one level down from that free flow stage that still feels pretty positive and good. And then all of a sudden you're into oppression and terror. And so there's an interesting sort of importance placed on trying to strive for the upper levels of this hierarchy. But in any case, dictatorship, I don't think we have to get too into it. Obviously, thriving on oppression and terror, not going to be seen as a very righteous or benevolent experience for anyone, maybe even the dictator. And obviously, embedded in this again if we think of this as relations, not just as leading or government, there are maybe situations, especially between a parent and a child, or siblings or something like that, where you do often come across as or do things that sort of act out of terror. And there may be ways in which, I've seen parents interact with their children in a way that's like they have to have a little bit of fear of me because they have to know that if they don't listen, that some form of oppression is going to happen. And the degree to which you may be able to work through that and find another way, this might be a little bit of an eye-opening moment or an opportunity. And the last is those who lie and end up despised and rejected. So not just a dictator, but somebody who's just completely untruthful and isn't forthcoming with others. And inevitably, this ends up in the lowest possible state, that those others actively despise you and that they reject you and basically don't want anything to do with you. Hopefully, that's not predominant in your life, but if it is, again, maybe an opportunity, something to consider, something to think about. You're here, you're now, and to the extent to which you have opportunity to, say, redirect your path, then this may be an option to do that. And something that's come up before that's sort of reiterated here, saying little and not putting confines on others. I'm sure you understand that you don't like confines and restrictions put on yourself. You like to be able to make your own decisions. You like to be able to feel like you have free will and agency over yourself. Other people feel that way as well. So not tying people down, trying to find opportunities to speak less rather than more. These are some ways that you can kind of build bridges. And lastly, as the verse says, people stay happy, believing that what happens naturally. Bringing it full circle around back to the first line of the verse, which is, when things happen naturally, it's as though they're hardly even there. It's just the state of things, right? It is just the way, it's second nature, as we say. It just feels instinctual and natural and normal and good. And this is the way to kind of get there. So in a broad scope, if you're in a leadership position at work or in the government or in your family or what have you, maybe consider ways that you may be coming across as on the dictator side of things, or maybe even on the rejected side of things. And if not, then just considering your sort of equal relationships with those around you, whether they're coworkers or friends, family, what have you, and ways in which you can work to sort of improve wherever you fall on this ladder. And just keep in mind that as this lays out basically 4 rungs of the ladder, that fall from the top rung, which is the sage, to the second from the bottom rung, which is the dictator, those are just one single rung away. And so it can turn very quickly if you're not sort of constantly striving for that upper tier of a relationship.